Hello, and the peace of the Lord be with you. And it's so good to be with you, even if I don't see you. But today I want to talk to you about the stained glass windows, an introduction. And stained glass windows are beautiful and very ancient artwork within the church. And part of the reason for it is a lot of people couldn't read or write, so they were illiterate. And stained glass windows were used to tell a story. And they're filled with all sorts of symbols that I might not be able to talk too much about because Miss Byers only gave me 10 minutes, and sometimes she'll let me go to 11 minutes. And beautiful imagery here too is as the sun goes through the stained glass windows, they kind of come alive and they become brilliant and beautiful. It represents how Jesus touches our lives, comes through us, and we too become brilliant and beautiful people, citizens of the kingdom of heaven. So I'm going to start with this first window over here, and you'll recognize that there looks like there's a letter of the alphabet in there, and it's the letter A in Greek. It's referred to as Alpha. And in the scriptures, in the book of Revelation, God refers to himself as the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. We'll see the Omega as the last window. And so the Omega is an O, the last letter of the Greek alphabet. So this represents the beginning, and you'll see all of the swirling and planets and stuff like that, and a symbol for God and the star. So God is creating the entire world. And if you stop and think about it, when you look at all the windows together, you'll see that swirl continuing. That swirl kind of unites salvation history. So the second window that we come to are Abraham and Sarah. Abraham's our father in faith, and they're carrying their child. And so he's got a walking staff, he's on a journey. God told him, you're going to move to a new land, and we do the same thing. We follow Christ constantly within our lives. And then we have this one here, I think you'll recognize. It's a bearded man who's holding two tablets, stone tablets, and so they're the 10 Commandments, and 1 through 10 are written in Roman numerals. So Moses is a great giver of the law, or God gave the law through Moses, and we still believe in the 10 Commandments. We still try to have the 10 Commandments guide us within our own life. And it looks like Moses is on a journey too. He's leading the people out of Egypt through the Exodus, the desert, and to their own promised land. And this one here is my absolute favorite window. And when we were trying to design the windows, I just pleaded that we have this one because they, for me, represent the two great women at the end of the Hebrew Testament and the beginning of the New Testament. So we usually associate Mary with blue and white, and so she's here. And she also has a little clue in her hand as who she is. She is pregnant, and she has a lily, which is a symbol of the risen Lord during the Easter season. And so these two women with their children are ushering in a whole new age. Elizabeth, of course, has her hand on her belly, just indicating that she too was pregnant with John the Baptizer, and Mary obviously with the person of Jesus. And Elizabeth was too old to really bear children, and when she was given the gift of John the Baptizer in her womb, she represents hope, and Mary always represents faith within our church. And then the window here, let me get on this side, is the Christmas window. So with Mary and Elizabeth, we go into the birth of Jesus Christ. And you'll notice something interesting. All of the saints have halos around their heads, and that's an artist's way of saying that they're holy people. But when you look at the child Jesus, and I hope you'll have a chance to look at the windows when you come back to church, you look at the child Jesus, his halo has a cross in it. And very often that's how artists will distinguish Jesus from the other saints, by putting a cross in his halo. And so Christmas theme, we have Joseph, and we have Mary with little Jesus. We have three gifts down here, the gifts of the Magi, and obviously the beautiful star that led the Magi to Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. And now we come to two of our largest windows, and it's Jesus the teacher. And I really believe what Jesus is doing here is giving his homily, the Beatitudes. And it's called a triptych because there are three individual windows that work as one. So you have people that are listening to Jesus as he gives the Sermon on the Mount. And what I find so interesting here, you've got two parents with two children, and they're looking at Jesus, listening to Jesus, taking in his words. But when you have a chance to come in and take a look at this stained glass window, you'll see two little kids that are not listening to Jesus at all. In fact, they're looking at a butterfly. So it reminds me how important parents are within our lives. They've already been evangelized, they know the person of Jesus, and it's they who are going to pass on the faith to their children. And the children are looking to the future of the church, in my mind, because they're actually looking at a little butterfly, and the butterfly is a symbol of the risen Lord. Because remember, a butterfly is like a little caterpillar, it goes in its own little cocoon, and eventually when the time is right, it comes out of that cocoon filled with brilliant colors and just a beautiful bug, if you will. And so the children are looking at a relationship with Christ in their future lives. And now we come to the second largest window, and three windows working together as one. Again, it's a triptych, and this one has very special meaning to me as well. This is Jesus multiplying the loaves, and it's a story that comes out of the gospel. Remember, Jesus is asking the disciples to feed a crowd of 5,000, and he asks them, what food do you have? And they find a little boy that has 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And so the disciples are saying, what good is that? But the reason why that is so special to me is if it was not for that little boy willing to share, then this miracle may never have taken place. And it just reminds me constantly how important our young people are in the church. We don't have to wait for them to do important things. They're doing them now, and they're making our community very, very strong. You remember the windows that we saw so far told us about the beginning of creation, introduced us to some of the important people within the scriptures, and then finally a couple of windows with Jesus. And now this begins the section of what I call the church. And the first window that we have here, you'll see tongues of fire descending upon people that are gathered, and obviously that depicts Pentecost and the sending of the Spirit. And the important thing for us to remember is the church, after Jesus' ascension into heaven, is now in the hands of the Spirit of God. And that Spirit was sent by the Father and by Jesus on all of us. And so we share within those the gifts of the Spirit, and especially it's kind of a stained glass window that I associate very much with Pentecost and confirmations. And the second window that we have here, part of the clue of symbols is that this man is wearing a crown. He's a saint because of the halo. And at the bottom, it's a church community that he founded. So obviously, this is our patron saint of our parish, is Saint Edward the Confessor. And the story was that Edward told the Pope if he got his throne back, because he was in exile, that he would visit the Pope, and then when he realized, if I get my throne back and I leave England, all is going to be lost. So he apologizes to the Pope, I can't come and see you, and what can I do in place of the visit? And the Pope simply told him, build Westminster Abbey. And so that's what's depicted there. And also, St. Edward, the large statue in the Commons, he's holding a church, Westminster Abbey, as well. This one here is Martin de Porres, and we do an awful lot of work with the poor, the elderly, and people who are sick. And so Martin was very, very known for taking care of the poor within his time. And so here he's depicted taking care of an elderly man. We can't show you this on film, but when you do come here, he's got a couple of creatures in the window. There are 2 little rodents, or 2 little mice or rats, and there's a story that comes with Martin de Porres. Apparently his church was very, very poor. It was overrun by rats. And so one day he goes into the church, he calls the rats together, and he said, I know you're here because you're looking for food, you're also hungry. If I promise to feed you every single day, will you not enter the church? And from that day forward, no rats entered the church. And over here we have Mother Teresa of Calcutta. The most interesting thing is we put her in a stained glass window before she became a saint. And so we had to have the stained glass window sent out so that when she was canonized, she would have her halo. And we have a strong ministry to our youth. And over here, Mother Teresa of Calcutta is taking care of a young boy who is sick, may very, very well be dying. And finally, it's the Omega window. There are two O's in the Greek alphabet, and this is the last letter in the alphabet. Now the crown here represents Jesus Christ in glory, King of the universe, so it's not St. Edward the Confessor, and there's a cross behind that crown to indicate that. And so we are all moving to that Omega point, that time that we will be Christ for all eternity in the kingdom, happy forever. And the last set of stained glass windows we want to introduce you to are right on kind of the roof of the church, and there are 6 stained glass windows making up that whole scene. And what it is the story of creation. And I'm going to invite you one of these days, if you're brave enough, just come into the church and lie down right in the middle aisle and look up. You'll see planets being made, you'll see night and day being done, you'll find animals, there's swans, there's a snake, there are other creatures that are there, there's wheat up there, there's water, and so you can imagine God creating. And so 6 panels, the 6 days where God actually created. And for me, what's beautiful is whenever we gather around the table of the Lord, it's kind of supper time. We gather on Sunday. So the missing 7th panel for the 7 days of creation, I like to think, is the table of the Lord, the altar, and we gather there.